Good afternoon, everybody. Jason Leva here with the Fort Worth Community Arts Center. It is Friday again, and we would like to welcome you folks to another fabulous episode of our Boxed Lunch program. Today we have a Jack or a Jill, if you will, of all artistic trades. We are so very fortunate to have with us today the one and only Tammy Melody Gomez. How are you today, Tammy?
Hi, I'm great. I wasn't prepared to be compared to two people who fall down a hill, but they got up, and I hope they filled the bucket with good stuff, because I'm about filling up buckets with good stuff.
Well, that is exactly what you do, is take something from nothing and create all of these fabulous artistic endeavors. I have to say, looking at your bio, all trades, it doesn't even compare. You're doing so many fantastic artistic ventures that my hat goes off to you, and it's just amazing to me all of the different disciplines that you have involved yourself with. So before we get into all of that, would you mind doing us a favor and just introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about who you are and what it is you do?
Okay, so yeah, this is sometimes tough because I have a vast curiosity about many things, but to boil it down to just a handful of words, I'm a writer, known primarily as a poet and spoken word artist, but I am curious about so many disciplines. So now I can call myself an interdisciplinary artist, and because I love working in community, best way to get to know me is work with me on a project, collaborate with me, and that's how you get to know me. Male, female, trans, whoever you are, you want to get up close to me, be in a project with me. And so as a community collaborative producer, that's how I've grown my network of friends, because usually my collaborators become and stay my friends for keeps.
Nice. Well, we are so blessed to have you today, and just so very grateful that you took the time. And again, you're very modest. I don't know if you're giving yourself near the accolades that I feel you deserve. You were recently published in the Wall Street Journal. Is that correct?
Yeah. The pandemic, to be honest and to be real, because I'm centering myself in this interview, knowing that a lot of people today are suffering, are hurting, and their struggle persists. So many different types of struggle: physical, social, political, economic. People are trying to survive right now. I'm one of those people too. But on the, I've been very lucky so far in the last 5-6 months. But a lot of really amazing blessings have happened, and it's amazing. We'll talk about this later about how to remain productive during these times as an artist. It just so happened that there's a editor who used to edit for the New Yorker, Alice Quinn, that wanted to put together an anthology of poems by people all over the country, by poets from all across the U.S., about how they're persisting and surviving. And I was invited to submit. I submitted about 5 poems, and they chose one because they wanted to pick ones that were representative. And so that one poem is in an anthology that's already out as an ebook, and the hard copy will be released in November. It's going to be thick. It's going to have a lot of work in it. I'm just one piece in there, but Wall Street Journal wanted to do a preview article about it in their Saturday edition, June 6th, and they asked if they could run my poem in it. So, I mean, that's, magic arrives, just put your hands open, blow some of your talents and skills into those open poems, and sometimes, the forces arrive to also help lift your work.
Well, congratulations to you. And I know that a lot of people are struggling, and it is so important, I feel, to be able to focus on some positives in this trying time. So congrats to you. And again, that's just a small fraction of some of the many artistic ventures that you are involved in. And I can't wait to delve into some of that. So before we do, Tammy, what is on your lunch menu today, and what sort of ingredients are you planning on using to create it?
Well, I am a night owl. My sleep pattern has drastically shifted, and I don't tend to get hungry, like really like bear hungry until like hungry until afternoon. So I'm just now building up an appetite, and I already kind of forecast that for myself. So I'm gonna do two things because
Nice.
they're kind of complementary, and one is a personal pizza that includes some fresh ingredients from my friend Kimberly's garden, right in, near South Side. It's, just this is ample evidence of people doing great things with their time during the pandemic. Thank you, Kimberly. The basil will go on the pizza. And then I also wanted to talk about a interesting dream that I had years ago where I concocted a recipe. It was like dream alchemy. And this recipe came into my dream, and I got up and remembered CCMC before I forgot what the ingredients were. And then I put them together. I did a trial run, and it's delicious. It's curry powder, or it's what I use, curry, chickpeas, couscous, and mustard.
Woo!
And I'm gonna put that in the rice steamer, and that'll happen on its own. It just, it's a matter of blending those ingredients together with a little bit of salt and maybe some onion. But CCMC came to me in a dream. Maybe I'm channeling some ancient, past life. Maybe I was, from the Mediterranean, lifetimes ago. But it's super delish, and so I'm gonna be putting that in the steamer in just a few seconds.
Very nice. Very nice.
How about you? What do you have?
Say again?
What do you have cooking?
I am having one of my Friday favorites, which is always barbecue. I love barbecue. We made some ribs last night, and so today I'm going to make some torpedo barbecue sliders with a side of potato salad. And I call them torpedo sliders because I'm basically using my world famous hot dog buns. So they just look like little torpedoes rather than smaller biscuit bready things. So, while you are enlightening me, I will be taking some of that rib meat, cutting it off the bone, and then I'm just going to throw it into a saucepan, warm it up, add a little bit of barbecue sauce, and have a fabulous barbecue sandwich for lunch. So.
Sounds good.
Yes, indeed. I'm quite excited. I'll eat barbecue for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and not too much prep work goes into it. But if I turn my back, it's just to wash the barbecue sauce off of my hands. So don't get flustered.
I won't.
So Tammy, before we delve into some of your information, I'm really curious. I'm becoming a little more aware these days of certain holidays and traditions that are celebrated out and around that I was totally, completely unaware of. And so there was a reference made in regards to your interview today, and I'm probably going to say this wrong, so I expect you to correct me. Today is Nino Aquino Day, is that correct?
First of all, I am a person of color, but I don't have an encyclopedia of knowledge of all our holidays. So I'm still learning and growing too. After all, I grew up in the US, and the educational system doesn't always put that kind of information in front of students. So the name sounds familiar, but I'm more familiar with this situation, which is today, 189 years ago today, Nat Turner led a slave revolt in Virginia, August 21st. So for me, I'm considering what Nat Turner and some slaves were trying to do for themselves to liberate themselves about almost 200 years ago. Aquino, I believe, was an indigenous, maybe also a rebel leader for liberation, but fill me in. You probably looked it up.
Well, we'll swap stories, and we will teach each other something that we need to learn along with everybody else out there. So it's my understanding that this was a Filipino working holiday, and August 21st is commemorating the assassination of former Senator Benigno Nino Aquino Jr. And so his assassination led to the downfall of Ferdinand Marcos, on February 25th, 1986, through the People Power Revolution. So it is a holiday in the Philippines, and helped to transfer power back to the people. And so I'll be really encouraged if people out there in Facebook land have any insight into that. And so it is a holiday over there. It is a working holiday, not a time off national holiday. So I found that very interesting as well. And so that's what I know about August 21st. Now I'm going to kick that back to you. And if you would please give me a little bit of insight into the situation that you were talking about that revolution.
First of all, my heart goes out to the people of the Philippines, because I did read briefly earlier this week that I think they've been overcome with a storm system that caused some devastation. I don't know the details, but if people are celebrating and have a means to celebrate today, and I'm sure, you know, if people are surviving, that today is a reason to celebrate. If you've made it through another day, yeah, raise your fist for yourself, you've done it. So Nat Turner was a slave in Virginia, and he and other folks put together a plan that was in the making for weeks, if not months, to do an uprising. So their final meeting was a barbecue, apparently, on a Sunday, early afternoon, and they said, yeah, tonight is the night. We will launch this, and we will fight for our freedom. And so that evening of August 21st, 1831, in the evening, each of these people snuck out of their quarters, their living quarters, and engaged in that revolt. And there was violence, I know, and they were just trying to upend, turn a system, flip a script, and that revolt lasted for about 2 days until they were either chased down, executed summarily in that moment, or later brought to courts or trial and that kind of thing. So that can be read about. There's a website I just learned about last night, natturnerproject.org, and that's put together by folks with letters after their names, history professors. So, I would say that's pretty authentic and legit as far as the information.
Wow. Well, thank you for that insight. And one of the things that I am really gracious about these days during this crazy time is finding out some of this stuff that I just was totally oblivious to. I had no concept or idea that some of these things had gone on. I am ashamed to admit that I probably didn't pay enough attention in history class to the things that they were teaching me, and am even more embarrassed to say that I never took the time to really look outside of my own circles like I'm trying to do now. So I certainly encourage you for that information, and certainly also encourage anyone to broaden their horizons, dig deeper, and find out a lot of the things that are truthful, factual, and a huge part of our past to help move us towards a better tomorrow and engage with the present that is going on now. So thank you for that, Tammy, and I will certainly take the time to educate myself on that particular episode and see if I can't do a little better about enlightening my own mind and our history here. So I certainly appreciate it.
I want to just suggest that part of relinquishing or letting go of that feeling of shame, embarrassment, like, oh gosh, I didn't know, and I've been here forever, or I live around people whose history that is, and I never got to know them, so I could learn directly from them, is to also forgive yourself. Forgive yourself, because you're acting now. Even if it's just this summer, or this year, that you're going online and doing some research on your own. It's self-directed. So forgive yourself for not knowing already, because now you're doing the work to undo that lack of knowledge. So forgive yourself, and then when you forgive yourself, you love yourself more. And when you love yourself more, there's more room for growth and potential to expand mindsets and to expand actual networks of social family, people you know and work with.
Well, I appreciate that. I tell people often about a little term I call lobstering. And if you have any awareness of the crustration, the lobster, they grow to a point to where their shells become uncomfortable and they can't grow anymore. And then they break out of their shells and grow a bigger, stronger shell. So I like to believe that's how I handle life. I do feel at times the squeeze from my own ignorance and awareness. And sometimes it's hard to break out, even though it may be uncomfortable. There is a certain lackadaisical attitude of being where we are comfortable and with what we know. So I also encourage people to break out and re-inform yourself, and you will be stronger finding information that you didn't know before. So thank you for that, Tammy, and I certainly appreciate it. So, all right. So
I just want to say, I think all of us have sat down to watch episodes of Jeopardy where we wish that we knew the answer to some questions that the contestants already knew, or when nobody knows and everybody writes, you know, in their funny handwriting, the wrong answer. And you're like, I want to know that because maybe I'll go on and they'll repeat that question. So there's always the opportunity, and it's more a matter of staying curious, because when you're curious, it's like your mind is a walking sponge. Wherever you are, it's like saying, stick to me stuff, stick to me information, stories I hear on the bus or people I eavesdrop on at the cafe, where we can't right now be close to each other to do that eavesdropping, but you know what I'm getting at. You know, it's just like stay curious, and you will evolve further, and you know, and then win those points on Jeopardy someday, maybe.
well, I look forward to watching Jeopardy and feeling smarter for sure. So Tammy, in terms of learning new things and experiencing new opportunities, do you mind tell me a little bit about what you personally have learned, and also what you've learned artistically in this trying time?
Well, I not so much learned, but was you had a great realization already. You know, I'm a writer and I'm used to being alone, and I need that solitude time. So I told myself back in March, I was made to be this way. I was born for this moment because I will do well being alone in lockdown. Even when we had the curfew, I was good with it because I thought I have all these projects, these half finished or just started scripts or concepts for scripts or poems that I have kind of dabbled with, but I haven't completed to, you know, finish to completion. So now's the time for me to do that. And so that's what I learned. The other thing I learned is that a person kind of near the poverty line, it's like, wow, look, I can actually stay home and no one needs to know that I'm a person that doesn't have a lot of money, because none of us are spending money. So it's not so obvious that, oh, Tammy doesn't go shopping like we do, or Tammy doesn't eat out all the time like we do. And it's like, wow, none of that needs to be known now. It's like we're all hunkered down at home, doing the best we can with the resources, the ingredients we have for meals, for spending time. Some of us may not have Netflix accounts, but I was hearing about this great panoply of like opportunities. There were different libraries, this library archive that was offering access to movies. There were, I was posting them on social media in the early days, like Middle Eastern films for free, indigenous films for free, Asian films, and it went on and on. It's like, wow, there's so much access, and I never knew that. We don't all have to be funneled into that channel that leads us to Netflix, which is, you know, it's carefully curated. And I love curation because I love my Criterion, I love my movie, you know, all of that, you know, different ways of getting to the content that you want. So it was a great exploration of that. The other thing I learned is that I can travel around the country and around the world without leaving my desk. Meaning, once we got Zoom comfortable and Zoom familiar, we could go and meet up and gather and share with, exchange poetic content, artistic content with people who we are not physically near. And that's exciting to me because as a person that doesn't own a car and doesn't get out very physically far from my home place, even when we're not in the pandemic, I can go places like, let's see, tomorrow's Saturday night. I'm going to be hanging out with Navajo Dene poets who are hosting a reading that starts at midnight, which I love. It's like, go do, your shopping, make your dinner, hang out with the kiddies, take a walk. But at midnight, get on that internet and hang out with Navajo Dene young poets and hear them talking about their experience in their own way and possibly with some, in indigenous languages. So I love that. I've been doing a lot of that, just finding the content that's interesting to me, that, again, that brings in the knowledge that I want to expand upon.
Sure. Now, is that open to the public?
Yeah, it is. You just have to email a specific person and they'll send you the Zoom link, and they're trying to grow their audience. Right now it's hovered between 15 and 40 folks. And it's a curated reading. So it's, mostly Native American writers, and many of them published and, kind of esteemed out in the poetic world. So I learn a lot, by just sitting and being there. And I feel like once I've gotten off or out of that meeting or that gathering space, I feel like, wow, like it's almost like walking out of the Bass Hall or, the Wiley Theater. It's like, that, oh, wow, you feel the afterglow, like, wow, what did I just see? And it was on a computer screen. And I don't feel like that's pathetic. I feel like it helps give me access to people who are going through similar experiences right now that I am in the pandemic time, but also it helps create a pathway for me to maybe eventually meet people in their geographic space once I can travel again and get out to places to visit.
Wow, that just sounds absolutely incredible. I'm glad to hear that the virtual world is not disheartening for you. I know that some people are not, they're not as prone to enjoy the live setting on a computer screen. I think we're getting better about it. Do you feel like the artists are embracing the format more now that we're 6 months in and starting to kind of learn how to adapt?
I think many of us are, and that's with a willful determination to study, what are its limitations, let's try to figure out how to de-emphasize, the sterile, kind of, the box, how do we get out of the box? We're in the box, we're artists, we don't want to be in the box. How do I get out here? How do I show things in a different way, use this space? So there's a weekly group that meets, and I've been hanging out with them as well on Mondays. That's noon Central Standard Time. And it's led by this wonderful theater artist, Claudia Alec, who's based in the Pacific Northwest. And folks, again, it's open to theater makers primarily, who are getting together to talk about the issues, that what are the platforms that work for us. There's one called Culture Hub, that's a new one. So there are alternatives to Zoom for performers, and folks are working on developing new digital platforms specifically for performers. That's exciting to me. So Claudia hosts these Monday sessions, last about an hour and a half, and theater makers, directors, professors from all over the country chime in on any shows they saw online, what seemed to work, what seemed to not work, how do we amp up our lighting, et cetera, et cetera. And it's turned into a really groovy network for me, and it averages maybe 20 to 40 folks as well. And the title of the series is Producing During the Pandemic. And what else was like? Oh yeah, and they've had almost 30 sessions. So they've been meeting for about 30 weeks, yeah.
Holy cow. Now again, is that available? Is it online, and where can we find that?
I'm happy to drop a link into the comments later, or send you direct message about that, because I want to amplify some of these resources.
Absolutely.
But I don't want to just you know, put it out there when, you know, I want to go direct to people who I think would benefit or who are curious. Some people don't, you know, they're happy doing what they do the way they do it, and others want to be like, what's the cutting edge here? What's going to move us forward? And even beyond the pandemic, folks that are transportation or mobility limited, or are, let's say, they're caretaken at home because they can't move around, they don't leave the home because of illness or mobility issue, you know, physical health. Let's bring magic to them via their screen post-pandemic. So anything we're learning now with Claudia's leadership is going to help us figure out how to do some of these things permanently. And that increases access. Access is so important. We're talking about it a lot today. Like, can you hear me? Do you see me? You know, maybe I don't want to be on screen because, you know, different reasons, and how you grant people their autonomy and self-determining right to, you know, be present however they want to be present.
Sure, absolutely. Well, it's already some great resources, and we'll circle back around to those before we wrap up and make sure that we can get that information out to people. Okay, so Tammy, how is your lunch coming there?
I'm just pouring water into my rice steamer. This is one of my very favorite appliances. I call it, it's, you know, it's just basically, you know, metal pot that goes into the electric thingy. And this was a gift from an Austin friend 2 decades ago, and I love it. So this is what now contains the chickpeas, the curry powder, the couscous. And I'm gonna get that going. All I have to do is click on a little lever and that starts to happen. And then I'm gonna turn around and start working on my personal pizza. Yeah, so that's where I'm at right now.
All right, well, I'm gonna give you a little insight into mine. So I have de-ribbed the barbecue meat from the ribs there. I got it all chopped up, and now I'm gonna just throw that in the saucepan and start heating that up a little bit. So while you're moving forward with your lunch there, you've already talked a little bit about this, and I was wondering if you wouldn't mind expanding on it a touch, and maybe even more so about how you personally have been adapting. But how do you see the arts continuing to adapt now that businesses are attempting to reopen? We're starting to kind of try some things live, and the virtual platforms seem to be expanding a little bit too. Where do you see the arts going, and how do you see them adapting as we move through this COVID-19 situation?
Well, I think many of us who were focused on presenting work strictly on screens or on stages are now thinking, wow, the Black Lives Matter movement was an outside dramatic thing that happens, you know, in some cities more dramatic than others. So, and a lot of the rallies, et cetera, contained or included performance elements, puppets, chants that are poetic, poetry, performances, spoken word, and skits. So there's a precedent for that, doing theater work or performance work out on the streets, like Teatro Campesino in California. They were theater groups, Mexican-American theater group, Teatro Campesino, who was out there, and that stands for like peasant farmer theater, or farmer theater is how you would loosely translate that. And that organization basically performed inspiring and motivating skits for farm workers in the fields. So they had a flatbed truck, and they would get up on the back of that flatbed truck, and in costume or with very, you know, crudely fashioned props. That means, you know, very few resources, just kind of hot glue gun and duct tape it together and you have your prop. And kind of outsized characters, because they knew that farm workers didn't have a lot of time to sit through a 2-hour Shakespeare play. So what they presented was something relevant to the moment for these farm workers to motivate them to do the uprising under the leadership of Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta. So yeah, a lot of theater work already has happened out on the streets. So some of us are looking at how do we do more of that and make things accessible on the streets, or back in the 90s, I drove around in a van one afternoon with a handful of poets, and I just found out that you could, there was a PA system that you could power with a car battery.
Yep.
So we borrowed my friend's car battery out of her truck for the afternoon, and we went and rented that PA system that came with 2 mics, I believe. And we drove around in that minivan. My good friend, Rich Perrin, who's now in Portland, Oregon, great poet and short story writer, he was driving, it was his van, and we stopped. We just slide open the door and turn that thing on and started reciting poetry. We stopped in front of a Fiesta grocery store and recited poems. We went to a park, wherever we saw people gathered. So that's the kind of community collaborative thing that doesn't take huge grants. You don't have to get tons of administrative approval. It's DIY. It's people saying, I have a creative expression that I want to share now. And let's go get the battery and the PA system, jump in the minivan, and off we go. So I think we're finessing that. Some of us are really thinking, even post-pandemic, maybe we want to be out in the streets. We want to meet people in the parks. We want to show up where they already are gathered for barbecue. Can you imagine like a barbecue picnic happening out of the Trinity Park when a troop of 10 people show up in costumes or not, and they just say, hey, we're performers and we'd like to offer you a 20-minute performance since y'all are hanging out and you're done with the Frisbee toss for now. And people go, really? Like, do we have to pay? No, well, we have a tip jar if you're welcome, or here's our Venmo on a little card, Venmo, and then do your thing, and then you move on to the next group of folks. I think we're gonna miss, because some of us really miss being around others, we're gonna want to encounter each other in maybe the most strange and off-kilter locations than before. And I'm ready for that. I'm here for that, to try to motivate us to get out there. I'm actually meeting with 2 friends tomorrow, tomorrow early evening, to work up a poem that I wrote into a puppet-based performance piece. So my friend Jose is, he's a package designer by profession, and he works with recycled cardboard pretty exclusively. So he's already been working on a bird mask, and also one that can be worn on a glove, like a little bird thing. So we're gonna meet up tomorrow, because I think we wanna move in the direction of adapting some of my poem into a musical piece. So we're gonna maybe try to sing together. We'll see how that goes. So, we're gonna be scheming in the park for maybe an eventual performance in a park or at Sundance Square or wherever we're welcomed, because still it's not everywhere that we can do this work. Right. There are places that say, no, none of that here. And we get to figure that out once we get out into Fort Worth streets and places again.
Yeah, true artists will always find a way to present what they're working on. And I think that's very important. And honestly, I think it'll probably show some resurgence in the core aspects of art, emotion and self perceptions and those sort of things that I think throughout the years we may have lost touch with a little bit, in terms of the flash and pizzazz of what technology has allowed us to do. And so I really do look forward to venturing back to the simplicity of art itself, and seeing if we can't get back to a little bit more of an emotional base with that. So I'm curious, you've mentioned a couple of times that you're a night owl and that you prefer the evenings. What is it about the evenings that create that inspiration for you as opposed to the daytime?
For one, most folks, at least in this time zone, they don't ping me anymore. The messages aren't popping up to distract me, because I have an infinite number of fascinating friends. That's one of my goals in life, is to just cultivate this cadre of fascinating, interesting, creative people. And so when they ping me, I know it's not going to be something lame. I know it's going to be like really, deep and penetrating and stimulating and kind of like the stuff of creativity. is what I'm getting at. And that's one thing. But then the other is just some of us, and it's not my solitary experience, that folks are feeling really overwhelmed by all the data, all the information, and it's coming at us really hard with the news cycle and reports of devastation and ongoing stress and health emergencies and crises on different levels. And so you read that as an artist, and there's a quote, I think it's Bertrand Russell, I think, I hope that's right. Being an artist means never looking away. And that's a curse and a blessing, because if you never look away as an artist, that means anything that comes into your mind is going to be considered and held there for a moment. And some of it becomes the potential for a performance or a new poem or a film that you might make. And some of it just gets embedded possibly in your body, and that can create tension if it's hard information. If it's happy information, hopefully, that can give you some joy and make you buoyant, at least for a little while. So all of that's churning within. And not a few of my friends have said, I can't sleep, I can't shut my mind down, I'm just in bed, but I'm staring at the ceiling. And I've tried to help folks, even as I know I need that help sometimes too, because I have found a few things that worked, and some of them were working better in the early months than, and who knew that we were going to be able to say that, the early I thought I'd just be, at home for, 6 weeks. Some other things are working better now. One quick example I'll give is that I decided I would do a self-study of the work of one of my favorite filmmakers, who's a Japanese filmmaker. His last name is Ozu, O-Z-U. And so I decided to do a little self-directed grad school course. I'm watching all of his black and white sound films in chronological order. And I have 1.5 left out of 14 films. So I've watched almost 13 of his films in the order in which he produced them. And I'm learning about, his trajectory of production in terms of, how he used the camera, how he set up his shots. I mean, you can tell just by watching the films, but also the content of the films, because some of them happened in the early years of World War II, and then during and after World War II. And when you're watching his films, to allusions to the war or post-war, tremors of, the after effect of losing the war, you see how little or how much of that kind of leaks over into the script. And he's so good at family dramas, household family dramas. It's and there's no outright violence or anything extreme in it. In terms of, I don't want to see that. They're not horrible that way. They're just very quiet family dramas. I'm a psych major. I graduated with a degree in psychology, so I love looking at how, the dynamics of human interaction and how folks respond to each other in different kinds of situations. So I love watching his dramas, and they were very soothing, actually, because Japanese people, at least as depicted in those films, they're not, in your face, and they're very, just when you think now's the time y'all really need to hug, they don't hug, they bow to each other, and you're like, wow, such restraint. I need some of that in my life right now. So just kind of stay calm, collected, cool. So watching Ozu has been such good medicine for me.
If you had to pick one film that you think encaptures his message throughout his filmography, do you have a suggestion for people to turn them on to his work?
Well, if you only see one of Ozu's films, it would probably need to be Tokyo Story, which is the most acclaimed and esteemed film of his entire filmmaking life. And some notable directors like Scorsese have said that film, Tokyo Story, is the best film ever made, or one of the 10 best. It makes a lot of top 10 lists. And that was the one I just saw a few weeks ago. So I've been savoring everyone that I watch. I type and take notes, which is just my thing. I want to do that. I have time to do that. You know, it's a self-study, and it helps me grow my sense of, you know, maybe being a future director for film. Also, storytelling, how to tell a story in a box because they're in the house.
Yes.
So it's great for me to just focus on one thing like that. I also read a lot of poetry, and I've been watching a lot of performance online.
Nice. All right, so I just want to check in with your meal prep there. How's it coming there on your lunch items?
Well, I've gotten nowhere with my personal pizza because my ready-made crust is still a blank slate. So I'm gonna get caught up here so I can throw it in my little oven. The rice steamer is doing its thing. It's smelling really good. It's too bad that Zoom doesn't allow smells to be.
I know, an audio feature, or a Aurora. I don't even know what you would call that.
Just imagine it's November and the oven is full throttle with a really great casserole baking, and it's just getting to the point where it's getting kind of crusty, crispy on top. That's what it smells like in my rice steamer right now.
It smells delicious. Okay, Tammy, so while you're prepping your little pizza there, do you mind talking a little bit about Sound Culture, which is your production lab, and what all do you have going on with that these days?
Yeah, it's not a physical space. That's why I thought a production lab kind of would cover it. It's basically a conglomeration of people that I've worked with over the years, and I have what I call sound culture specialists, who are just the go-to people in my world, in my book, to help me accomplish specific things. Like my friend, great friend and brother from another mother, Ramsey Sprague, is one of my music collaborators. He's now based in Alabama, but he actually showed up in May to help me live stream a performance. And so he played music, you know, through his channel there in Alabama while I was doing a live performance from inside a closet in my own living space here. So he's a sound culture specialist. Lane Calabro is a sound culture specialist. She's now based in, well, she works for Lockheed, but she got a nice deal where she could work digitally even before the pandemic. So she moved up to upstate New York to be closer to her parents who are, you know, older and needing more attention and care. So she's my go-to in terms of website building and that kind of digital work, because she does that professionally as well. So she's the person that put together my Bike Spoke Love website, which is about my bicycle play that was produced in 2007. So Sound Culture is about me going out and making friends with people who become really great collaborators with me, and we do things like performance out in theaters or at art galleries, or we put together audio tracks that can be shared on SoundCloud, or we work on films. I just completed a film with a friend of mine who's a film student at SMU right now, and Everton Mello is in his last year. He's just starting his last year there, and he's asked me to be one of his creative producers for that project. So yeah, Sound Culture is about this interdisciplinary aspect of what I do as an artist, just not wanting to be alone, because as a poet, I'm very alone. But I don't want to be always alone. So when I started the spoken word band in Austin in the 90s, you know, my guitarist was a friend from Fort Worth who used to hang out at the Hop with me back in the 80s when we were first doing open mics at this thing called Miracle on Berry Street, because it was a miracle that we had an ongoing weekly poetry reading every Sunday night. It was like church for us. And so Tony showed up in Austin, and I said, "Hey, Tony, you live here?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm playing guitar. Hey, you ever thought about starting a band? I could be your guitarist." So then we built a band, and I was the front person with my lyrics, with my poetry, and the band members just riffed great music, and the sound ranged from reggae to punk rock to calypso to jazz. My drummer was phenomenal. He even was a touring drummer for Kelly Clarkson for a couple of years.
Wow.
And I got him when he was still in undergrad at UT Austin. So, you know, I got lucky because I met this drum genius who's now, you know, in Brooklyn or someplace else now. And then we performed at South by Southwest back when they had spoken word showcases for poets with music. So we performed 2 or 3 times. That was a blast. That, you know, that whole time was a blast.
Nice, very nice. Yeah, so much amazing stuff you've been a part of. It's really cool. Playwriter, spoken word band, producer, all kinds of fun stuff. So it's just so cool to hear all of the different things that you've been a part of and continue to be a part of. So we touched a little bit earlier on some of the resources that you were talking about. Do you have any other resources that you are using personally, or any community resources that you can suggest or recommend for other artists out in the area these days?
Well, actually, I applied for and received 2 artist relief grants. As you know, it's such a blessing. There's an organization in Washington, D.C. It's Art Administrators of Color. They offered grants in the amount of $200 for artists of color. And I think they were emphasizing female or female identifying artists of color. So I applied to them, and they phoned me and said, your name's up, you're next, you're getting one. What's your PayPal? And I said, do I need to send you a follow-up report, you know, a closing report, receipts? They said, nope, you're an artist, you know, it's coming to you, and congratulations. I also received a grant from NALAC, 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 and that it's a national organization that supports Latino artists, Latinx artists, and they're based in San Antonio, but they impact Latinx artists all over the world, all over the country, with support and grants and educational opportunities. So NALAC had an opportunity also for emergency aid. And NALAC stands for National Association of Latino Arts and Culture. So I received one of their grants about 2 months ago, and that was also a blessing. Here locally, oh my gosh, I want to say that it takes a village to feed a Tammy. So yeah, I want to just briefly touch on food security and security for folks, because that's a real thing. Even before the pandemic, it was a real thing, and I was in there too. You know, sometimes in lines to get whatever gifts I could get from church pantries, etc. I want to give a shout out to my friends Jennifer and Ari, who made me this batch of elderberry syrup, and I got this beautiful bottle of healing medicinal power in San Antonio in early March, right before I went into lockdown. So that's, you know, my family is feeding me. It takes a village to feed a family. My brother just stopped by yesterday with gallons of milk and some cream cheese, and then some vegetarian sausage. So I'm going to add this vegetarian sausage. Thank you, Ted Gomez. That has, it's artisan vegan, a blend of European and Asian heritage. It's vegetarian with eggplant, fennel, fresh garlic, and red pepper. So that's going to go on my personal pizza. So I've been doing food exchange with folks. So if I feel like I have too much of one thing, I'm messaging people saying, I have too much of this thing, and I'm going to get on my bike, because I don't drive, get on my bike and backpack it to you. And somebody, Everton, jogged, because he's a jogger, to my house yesterday, and I gave him another thing of cream cheese that I got too much of. So I love that, how people are just redistributing the resources, and it's like small as socialism maybe to some people. To me it's heart. It's just making sure we all get fed and stay nutrified, that we're engaging in healthy habits, supporting each other when we're feeling a little down, cheering each other up with memes. Or I have a friend in Dallas who is emailing me little postcards, and Amber, I'm gonna mail you something soon. So I love that we're taking care of each other that way. And
Nice. Yeah, some great information, and Thank you for sharing all of that as well. If you think of anything else that you want to pass along, just come back to the comments and just put a link in there as well. And we'll do our best to kind of keep up with some of the information that you're sharing as well. So.
Oh yeah, United Fort Worth, which is a local organization here in Fort Worth, is now doing a GoFundMe to raise funds for immigrant families that are food insecure or needs financial support. So United Fort Worth is doing that, and the money is going exclusively and completely to families in need, immigrant families in need, and that's beautiful. So I'm also a person that likes to, put the information out. So I like to share as much as I can, as much as I can think of in the moment, because
that's quite all right. That's the beauty of Facebook. You can always come back and just add to it as it comes to mind, or if you think of anything else that might come up that's new as well in the community, or just even in the arts industry. So, okay, Tammy, I'm starting to plate up. How are you coming over there?
I think I'm gonna have to show you my CCMC because the pizza is not even in the oven yet. So, yeah.
That's okay. Same thing. If you want to, just come back and show us a picture of that as well. So I think you've taken me on the talk train as well, and I get so swept away by the information that people share with us here at the box lunch that sometimes I forget to even cook my lunch. That's why I've simplified a lot of things, so I can just focus on what people are saying to me.
So did the barbecue plate, did the torpedo turn out?
It absolutely did. I'm not showing you mine until I see yours. So.
Okay, well, let me get some mustard in this and then I'll be done.
You're quite all right, Tammy. I'd rather see a well-prepared meal than a quick interview. So you do whatever you need to do. And I noticed that you also talked a little bit about health, body and mind. Do you have any other tips or tricks out there to keep people sane mentally and physically?
Oh, music for sure. The music that you love, the music that you that soothes you, calms you down, or energizes you. Dance. There's a really great DJ out of Oakland she was so great. She did a Facebook Live and she was playing cumbia music, and oh my gosh, I have to look her up. She's based in Oakland, and I would hire her for my birthday party in a heartbeat. So that music is important to me. Also exercise. So I've been biking at night, like I go out after 10. That cool night we had about 3 days ago, Tuesday night, I believe, I took a bike ride at 1 a.m. So yeah, I've been thinking maybe I would turn into a one-person bicycle security detail so I could like bike around, make sure everybody's behaving and not doing strange things on the streets. So here's, I mean, it's not a lot, but let me see if I could tip this over. Yeah, this is the couscous, curry, mustard, chickpeas blend. And it's delicious. And I added some onion as well. And so they will complement my pizza. If I tip this over even more, it'll fall onto the desktop. So I want that to happen.
It looks absolutely delicious. So I'll give you a little peek at mine here. So here's how mine turned out. I've got a little bit of that potato salad on there. And
okay.
I've run out of paper plates, so I'm back to my regular china, not my fine paper china. And so there's the barbecue meat that I just chopped up, my little torpedo bun there. So I'll just put that on there. I'm going to give another little shout out to Trader Joe's sweet and spicy pineapple barbecue sauce. So that's what I used. I can't recommend it enough. And Tammy, here's the most important question of the whole entire interview. How and where can we find you, keep up with you online or off? And how do we find out about all of the great things that you've got going on?
I'm really bad at some social media. I have an Instagram account, and some followers, but I haven't used that yet. I think I'm going to launch that in September. September is my birthday month. My Instagram is Tejana Tongue, Tejana Tongue, Tejana Tongue. Being a Tejana means you're like Mexican-American female from Texas, Tejana. Tejana Tongue, that's Instagram. On Facebook, on Twitter, I'm Tammy M. Gomez, M for Melody. And Facebook, hit me up on Tammy Melody Gomez. And I also have a Sound Culture Facebook page, and you're welcome to like that, and you can keep up with Sound Culture projects that way.
Awesome. Some just incredible things going on, Tammy. I can't thank you enough for joining us. Any final words of wisdom to the people out there?
Support Black-owned businesses, please. My friend Kimberly has put together, or helped put together, a new updated version of this Google Doc, and I'll be dropping that in the comments. Support Black-owned businesses, local, close to you, walking distance, biking distance. Let's do that.
Sounds great. Wonderful information.
Great. Thank you.
Of course, Tammy, I can't thank you enough for joining us. It was just a pleasure to visit with you, and I wish you nothing but the best and so much more success. Keep us posted so we know what's going on with you, and we can get out there and support you as well. So just very grateful to you taking the time, and just so thankful that you decided to join us for lunch today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Jason. Bon appetit.
Absolutely. Bon appetit, everybody. That wraps up another edition of Box Lunch here at the Fort Worth Community Arts Center. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram. We've got some wonderful content on our YouTube channel as well. My barbecue sandwich is falling apart, so I'm going to use a fork for my sign-off today. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back on Monday with another episode. Bon appetit, everybody. We'll see you again real soon. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to everybody. Bye-bye.